I'm in a zone. Pull out the spot with the speakers banging way.
Welcome to another amazing episode of Allergic to Average. My name is Agaba, Mastergabs, and with me, of course, is my main man, Jacob, Play01.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The guest that we have with us today, I won't belabor the point by making a lengthy introduction because I don't think any introduction that I could make would do justice to the resume that she has compiled. And the excellence that she demonstrates on a daily basis in all that she does.
This is how
I will just say that this lady truly is allergic to average. And by the life that she leads, she demonstrates it on a daily basis. And we're happy to have her here to talk about life, to talk about the hustle, to talk about all things important to her and to us. And so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Siima to Allergic to Average.
What an introduction.
Yeah,
My
right?
goodness, the pressure. Now, how are you guys doing? It's good to see you guys.
It's good to see you too.
Before we go far, can I ask your actual full names?
My actual full names?
Yes.
It's a bit of an essay. My parents were feeling very poetic when each of myself and my siblings were born, but my full name is Siima Chakohere Chomuhendo Sabiti. Also known as Kanyindo, which is a nickname. It's not an actual name.
Why they call you Kanyindo? I thought it was something about your nose.
Yes, no, when I was little, one of my favorite uncles, rest in peace, Uncle Simon, he used to call me Kanyindo because my nose was little. Obviously, I've grown into it a bit, but yeah, it just stuck as a nickname. And when I signed up to Twitter 100 years ago, Siima was already taken. So, and I didn't want to add loads of ones and, the date of the year of my birth. Exactly. I didn't want to do that. So no one else was Kanyindo. So I said, right, that's what the Twitter handle would be. And here we are.
All right. So Allergic to Average is a show where we have conversations with people who demonstrate a pursuit of excellence in everything that they do in their lives. We're all about making sure that when you wake up, whatever it is that you're doing, you're pursuing excellence in that space and time. So in your work life, in your academic life, should you be a student, in your family life, whatever it is that you do. And when we talk about who we want to invite on our show and when we want to think about people who truly represent that ethos of being allergic to average, your name was top of the list among the individuals that we want to invite on. So first of all, we thank you for honoring our invitation. But when I was doing my Googles, right, and when I was doing my research, right, I did Google you. I mean, of course, we have the whole family friendship, right? We have the whole family friendship. If I called my dad right now and I told him I'm having a conversation with Siima on my podcast, that dude would be like, "Yo, tell her I said what's up."
Yeah.
Is that one of those things where your dad starts reminding you? Remember that time when we met at this Kwanjura?
Those things.
We've known each other for a long time.
Really?
Those things. Yeah.
This is cool. I didn't know this.
Yeah. So it's really nice to be able to have this conversation with you in a different forum, in a different space.
Yeah.
But I was reading so much about you, and the bio that a lot of people attach and associate to you is that you're a radio presenter, you're a media personality. But in the reading that I was doing, that is just scratching the surface of the substance of the woman that you are. And so we're really looking forward to having a conversation with you about all of that.
Yes.
And really helping redefine the public's understanding of who Siima is. Because there's a lot that people assume but don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot.
If you'd like to bust any myths, here's your opportunity to do so. But also for people to just see a different side of you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So here we are. Yeah.
My small disclaimer. One of two things is going to happen. This episode ends while live. My accent hasn't changed by the end. I'm overwhelmed here.
Bro, let me tell you
My
something.
accent is changed by the end of this episode.
We're hammering you from both sides of the Atlantic right now.
Rock and a hard place.
I think it's safe enough to say, we've worked together on different projects. If by now I haven't elevated your accent, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it.
Why do you think I dodged our last 4 recording sessions? And like, this woman is killing me over here. This woman kills me with accent. I'm like,
wow.
Okay, let's go. Focus, accent, let's go.
I'm glad I'm not the only one at the table today. I'm glad I'm not the only one at the table today. So actually,
I'm the minority.
You're the minority
I'm the
today.
minority right now. I start speaking German. I'll still be the minority anyway.
Break it down, bro. Break it down. So, yeah. So, let's go a little bit into your background, your youth, right? Again, I'm a researcher. I did my research, right? And I read that you spent quite a bit of time moving around as a young person.
Yes.
In your childhood and your youth. You moved quite a number of times.
Yes.
And you saw quite a bit of the world, and you were immersed in different cultures as a young person. Do you find that created an advantage for you?
Yeah.
That has residual spillover benefits today in your everyday life?
Definitely. I think it's a double-edged sword. So my late dad worked for UNHCR. So he did a lot of work with refugees. And around the time when I was born, because I'm the third of 4 kids, I've got 2 older sisters and a younger brother. So by the time I was born, my dad at the time was working in Swaziland. So that's where I was born. And then when I was 2 months old, he was posted to Switzerland to work at the headquarters. So we moved to Switzerland, and we were there for 5 years. So I grew up. We were living in the French section of Geneva. So I went to French kindergarten. So I actually spoke French before I spoke English. Then after Switzerland, my dad was then posted to Zimbabwe. So we moved to Zimbabwe when I was about 6, 7 years old. Which was great. It was a culture shock because obviously I'd technically never been to Africa because we moved to Switzerland when I was 2 months old. So I knew like snow and all of this stuff. So moving to Zimbabwe was very, very exciting. And it was just nice to be back, in an African country. Obviously in the times when we lived away, we did come back to Uganda either every summer or every other summer.
How old were you at the time?
Zimbabwe, I was about 6 or 7. And by the time we left, I was about 9 years old. So we moved roughly like every 4 years. Yeah. So from Zimbabwe, we moved to Ethiopia. Then from Ethiopia, we moved to Sierra Leone. Then it was whilst I was in Sierra Leone, I finished my primary schooling in Sierra Leone. And because of all the moving, that's when my parents were like, once you get to secondary school, we'll send you to England for that stability.
Yeah.
So back to your question about the advantages. I feel it's definitely given me advantage. I've experienced so many different cultures. I'm glad that I got to live in these countries and also go to school in these countries. So I have friends from different parts of the world. I've eaten food from all kinds of different parts of the world. And the advantage I feel it gives me is, particularly as a creative, is just different influences. So I can hear some, Ethiopian music and think, okay, this is a groove. Or I can hear some, high life music from West Africa and, get into that. So I think the advantage of moving was experiencing all these different cultures, but the disadvantage was not growing up in Uganda. So there's a lot of things, there's schools, obviously I didn't go to school here, so there's a lot of conversations that my friends and colleagues who did have that I cannot be a part of. Yeah. Certain aspects of, the culture that I feel I sort of missed out on. So having traveled, yes, there were the advantages, but there was the double-edged sword of not getting certain things from home as in Uganda and also being seen as other when I did come home.
Wait, okay, first of all, how many languages can you speak?
Right now, fluently, honestly, 2. Okay, I speak English and French. I can, have conversation, read, write, and comprehend.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then good enough.
Yes.
Well, which ones? Not beyond perfect now, the good enough ones. English, French?
I will stop there, to be very, very honest. I can understand Luganda up to a certain point. I can count up to 10.
You can
one of the things that I'm most impressed by is when people who are quote unquote public figures, who people think that they know a lot about, because they recognize your name and your face, they think they know about you in your personal life. Okay. But I've never seen, or at least according to the media that I consume, read a story where people are representing themselves as knowing about you and what you've got going on in your private life, which leads me to believe that you keep your personal life private, pretty well guarded, right? So can you talk about that a little bit in this Kampala that we live in, where everybody feels entitled and welcome to knowing about you and what you've got going on and what you do, particularly by virtue of the profession that you have chosen, sharing your voice and yourself with the masses. People believe that they are entitled to knowing about you, but you only give the people what you want them to know.
You refuse.
And I subscribe to that very, very religiously.
Okay.
And so can we talk about that a little bit in terms of how you've managed to strike that balance? You've talked about yourself, as a 40-year-old woman who's living life according to your own unique individual formula.
Yep.
Not by anybody else's measure of what success or achievement should be. But talk about a little bit, how do you manage the whole element of privacy and not to overshare, what to share, what to let people in on, who to trust?
Especially in your
right?
line of work.
Yeah.
Especially my line of work. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that I necessarily have a particular formula or anything. I think for the most part, I'm lucky in that the people I have in my life who are nearest and dearest to me don't yap.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's plenty of people who could have, gone and splashed a story about me or said something about me, but they haven't. So either I'm really boring or I just have really good people around me. But also, as much as social media, and don't get me wrong, I love Twitter. I really do. I've met so many amazing people.
You are a Twitter person.
I'm a Twitter person.
Yeah.
Even though I know, since this other guy bought it, it's, turning into a bit of a dumpster fire. But I always remind myself that Twitter's not a real place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can have hundreds of thousands of followers, but they're not necessarily, a lot of them are bots, they're not real people.
True.
And they're all dealing with their own things. Each single follower you have is a person with a life, with challenges, with triumphs, with tragedies, with everything. They don't really want to know every little iota of my life. But also, there's really not that much going on. Like, I'm literally just trying to,
Well, that makes you actually special because most of the people on Twitter do not look at other people.
Yeah.
They do not care that other people are going through. It's like a machine gun. That's actually why I struggle with Twitter of late a lot, because for me, someone once described Twitter as a border stage where they speak English.
Oh, wow.
And that is the best definition I've ever had.
That is powerful. I
It
get
is,
it.
and it makes sense. Because everyone's just throwing opinions and just talking at the same time.
That's a bar. That's a bar.
It is.
The border stage where everyone's speaking English.
Yeah, that's how it feels for me.
Yeah.
So and when they're talking, no one really cares about what the other person's going through, what that person is thinking.
Yeah.
So for you to hold out that much, that makes you quite different. Because honestly, most people that come on Twitter are kind of like driven. They're like engagement driven.
Exactly.
Like that guy in that comedy, that Daily Show guy, like engagement. They feed off engagement. It powers them.
Yeah.
So they tweet to cause chaos, not to cause motion, to get engagement.
Yep.
So that's the goal.
And you see, therein lies the problem. And this is why I curate my spaces very, very carefully. So I have no time for bigots, misogynists, homophobes. Like, I will block you instantly because it's my space, right? So I think, in and of what you're saying about engagement, why I think some people get so deep into social media is I'll post something, let's say it's a picture of myself in a dress, and I get loads of engagements and it's wonderful and I feel good because everybody's liking it and bigging me up. Next thing, I'll post something, maybe I'm having a bad day and I'm just feeling really sad and nobody likes it or whatever. So if I attach the engagement I get to validation of my feelings or what I'm going through, it's going to be a dangerous place to live. So the one thing I would say to people is social media, remember, it's not a real place. It's not a real place.
There's a poem. You need to, his name is Marshall Jones. He wrote it 10 years ago. It has literally driven me for 10 years plus. And there's a part he says, if in this world friends form cliques, rather live in the world where cliques form friends.
Oh, wow.
My guy.
That, I don't want to just look for a Marshall Jones. It's about, yes, you have to admit it's such a deep piece. And he goes deeper into our obsession with social media.
Yeah, you've got to be careful.
And how people are
Siima, I appreciate your presence today because Jacob has never been this intellectual.
Oh, really?
I'm on the road. Come on.
Osmosis.
Let me tell you something. You've brought something out of this man today.
It's the accent.
Let me tell you something. Huh?
It's the accent. I'm overwhelmed by too much accent right now.
The aspirational quality of this conversation.
No, which brings me to, I don't know if it's too early for me to bring this in. Which means if you control how much you make stuff happen, right? Which is actually a good thing, because most people are dopamine driven. They love the feeling of just keeping to get it. But if you control it, that brings me to, if I have switched topic, to one of the biggest moves you made, which I think by the time I did know you,
Yeah.
but it made social media shake. And actually this covers the last two topics we've just spoken about. The wedding. That wedding.
Oh, the Caberns wedding.
The Caberns wedding.
Yeah, that wedding.
You know what's hilarious to me? I attended that wedding.
Yeah.
I was there live.
Yeah.
And it was a vibe. Let me tell you something. It was actually a proper party. It was like, yo, first of all, what the fuck? Like, why? Right? First of all, why? But then once we understood the why and the moral support that you were allowing this young lady to feel and her unique journey that she was going on, the fact that she could have been subject to so much ridicule and just people really just cracking jokes at her expense. But you guys really embraced her, wrapped your arms around her, and now put yourselves out there in an effort to generously support what she had going on.
So for people who do not know what happened, you guys want to lay it out?
Let me leave that for Siima to explain.
No, she was going to give us a one-sided view.
No. The reason why I'm not going to take on the responsibility of explaining it all is I keep referring to the young lady because I'm not recalling her name off the top of my head. Yeah. I understand the scenario of it.
Yes.
Right? The young lady was being pressured to get married.
Yes.
And she didn't want to go through all of that stress anymore. And therefore she decided to marry herself.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
That's what I remember.
Okay, there's a little bit more to it than that.
Yes,
Here we go.
So this lady, Lulu Jemima, brilliant Ugandan. So she wanted to go and do her master's at Oxford University. And she had been offered a part scholarship, but obviously she needed, some money for the next part of the scholarship. And she'd graduated, she'd got her first degree, she was now going to pursue her further education. But everybody kept telling her, now get married, bring us a husband. She's like, I'm trying to bring you a master's degree, So they were like, when are you going to bring us a husband? So she's like, you know what, guys, I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm getting married. Come. So she had a wedding at Kepasa. In Kisementi, she wore a dress. People turned up and she's like, look, I'm marrying myself. Not that she was literally marrying herself, but she said, I am making a commitment to myself, i.e. to further my education. The husband and all that stuff will come later, but right now this is my focus. Yeah. So I saw, it was actually Winnie Byanyima who had retweeted the story about Ugandan girl marries herself. And you know how a lot of Ugandans are on social media. They don't read to comprehend or they don't read to understand further. So people were like, this is what's wrong with women today. They're even marrying themselves. I was like, read the article and understand. So I read it and I thought it was dope because I was like, man, I hear that stuff all the time. You go home to visit your relatives and they're like, oh, thank you for coming. When are you bringing us a husband? I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. So I jokingly quote tweeted the article and I was like, maybe I should do this and just have a wedding so my relatives can get off my case. So Bernard and I followed each other on Twitter, but we'd never met. We know a lot of similar people, but we had never met. So Bernard replies to my tweet and he's like, yeah, I'm also tired of hearing from my family. So I replied to him and I was like, hey, since we're in the same boat, why don't we just do this and kill two birds with one stone? He's like, dope. End of tweet. Ha ha ha. I go to bed. I sleep. I wake up the next day. Now, my friend Nerima kicked off and she's like, let's make this wedding happen. So Mariah. So she started the
Shout
hashtag.
Out red lipstick.
So she got our two Twitter handles. So she got Kanyindo and MK Burns that came Kaburns. So she started off and she was like, I'm booking bridesmaid. So I was like, yeah, haha, whatever. Next thing I know, over the next 24 hours, different companies are falling in. Sheraton's like, you want a venue? Other guys are like, do you want cake? Oh, we'll dress you. All of this stuff. And it just sort of snowballed. And I was like, y'all are joking. Very funny. Ha. Let's get on with life. So literally 48 hours after the Kaburns wedding was trending on Twitter, the guys at the Square, shout out Rahim and Nahida, they call me and they're like, Siima, we can legit throw a party. Like, let's do something. So I was like, okay, guys, let's have a meeting. I'm still not taking this seriously. So we have a meeting, and I can't remember exactly whose idea it was first. I think it was Nahida who was like, we'll charge guys entrance, and then we'll collect the money, and we'll donate it to Lulu's GoFundMe, because she had started a GoFundMe to get the
The
rest of a
masters.
scholarship money. So I was like, sounds like a great idea. So for about a week or two, I was in wedding meetings. Please note, Bernard never turned up for a single one. He was always conveniently busy or stuck in traffic.
Typical groom behavior.
I know, right? We
So-
have a full bridezilla here.
Before I knew it, look, I wasn't even being a bridezilla. I did not believe that this thing was
Was
going to
real.
happen. So anyway, we set a date, and then I knew I have to tell my mother because now rumors are swirling. There was an article in Red Pepper, and basically the article was saying that she's so desperate she's marrying a man she doesn't know.
Of course.
Wow.
Of course.
Please
Red
note,
Pepper needs the headlines.
Bernard and I had not met at this point.
Yeah.
So anyway, I called my mom. So I called her on a Tuesday. Wedding's on Friday. So I knew it was around Halloween time. And so I was like, oh, hi, mommy. So, it's kind of like a Halloween party, but it's like a wedding theme. So I'm going to be dressed like as a bride, but it's not like real.
Halloween party.
That's what I told her. So she was like, nah, what's going on? So I explained the whole thing to her about Lulu Jemima. Please note, I hadn't even met Lulu Jemima at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, Lulu,
So-
that was her name.
Lulu Jemima. So I told my mum about it. So day of the wedding, I did the show. I was still on radio at the time. I did the show. Then it was crazy. Lulu and I were being interviewed by the BBC. They were like, so is this going to be a legal thing? I was
Wait,
like, no.
BBC?
BBC. Please, understand this is so surreal. So I met Lulu that morning. We went to UBC for an interview. And then I was like, chick, I'll see you later. I went home. So I got ready at the office. So my dress was there. One of my
Because
sisters
someone
was a
covered the dress too,
bridesmaid.
right? Or the company?
Everything. We did not pay for a single thing. The venue. We had like 5 cakes. Bernard was dressed by House of Tile.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So Bernard and I actually met at the altar. That's when we were like, oh, hey, hi, how you doing? But anyway, I've rambled. But we did it. It started off as a joke, and it literally snowballed out of our hands. I remember arriving at the square in a tiara and a dress and thinking, okay, what am I doing here? My brother walked me down the aisle. But one thing, whenever I'm having a bad day and I'm just like, humanity sucks, I remember what UOT did. We raised like 7 million shillings for Lulu.
That's
that night.
amazing.
2000.
And this is like October. It's, time of the year. People don't necessarily have money. People came through. People were dressed. I mean, Gabs, you were there. People were dressed.
For sure.
Like, it was a full-on wedding.
Yeah.
But Ugandans on Twitter, don't play with them. They make things happen.
I really thought that wasn't gonna. I also thought it was a joke. I remember you tweeting and okay, this couple is gonna bring. So like, you guys need to stop joking. You guys need to stop the joke. I saw you just smiling.
Yeah.
I'm like, they'll talk, but it won't happen. Then I saw the pictures. I'm like, wait,
Let me tell you.
I didn't think it was gonna get that far.
Dude, I was in the office of a digital agency, right? This is when I was working as a brand manager for Uganda Waraji at the time.
Yes.
And so when the conversations were flowing back and forth, Sheraton wanted to give this, so-and-so wanted to donate that, right? So my digital team at UG was like, yo, see this trending topic right now. See this conversation that's popping off online. So they showed me the whole thread from beginning to end and all of these different brands that are coming in. They were like, yo, UG needs to sponsor drinks
Yes.
for this wedding. I was like, bro, let's do it. Let's make it happen, because I'm like, trust me when I tell you this is amazing.
Yeah.
The story, the everything, the engagement. So coming to that event and showing up there and being like, first of all, you look lovely.
Thank you.
You look
So it took
beautiful.
a village.
Right? You look lovely. You really look like a blushing bride
Right?
on that day.
Yeah.
Like you didn't stop at any measure to make sure that you represented the image of a blushing bride. I was like, wow, these guys are really going serious. Like,
Honestly.
this is not a joke.
That-
It's a joke, but it's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke, but it's not a
Did
joke.
vows and everything.
Right? The altar,
Yeah.
the procession.
Redende in a dog collar.
Yeah, let me tell you something.
It was mad. But it was such
was
a
awesome.
great,
It was
such
awesome.
a great night.
But that's like, I think that's one of the coolest things, because when you think about that, right? We know what it did. There's a balance. Twitter shows I believe Twitter shows humanity's complete potential, both good and bad,
Good point.
to the extremes.
Very true.
So here's another example of extremes for both. You guys heard about the KFC wedding?
Yes.
You heard about the
I
KFC
did
wedding?
not hear about the KFC
Yes.
wedding.
So this guy, now this is an example, but see, this story is pretty much tweeted on 100% positive mostly, right?
Yeah, mostly.
This was both. This guy proposes to a girl at KFC, South African guy.
Yes.
At KFC. And then the bad Twitter comes out. How can you propose at KFC? They roasted him for a while, right? I took, I don't know, a day, maybe two? I don't know. And then people are like, come on, you can't do that. Then they flipped it over. Companies funded the whole wedding. When I say companies, I mean Audi gave rides. They gave flights.
Yeah.
Let's say Airways, I think, gave flights.
Yeah.
They gave holidays. The full
full
but the
shebang.
real version.
Yeah.
Like, guys roasted them on Twitter for being cheap and posing at KFC. And KFC actually also sponsored something.
Yeah, I think they did.
KFC also sponsored something.
Like a 150 piece.
Like one of those. You get a bucket. Everyone gets a bucket.
Drumstick bouquet.
Drumsticks.
You know, like they
Unlimited.
flipped it so hard.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at it like, damn, these guys have a nice ass wedding off of just KFC. Like just look for KFC. Like you see, like the good came out so extreme that all the negatives guys spotted at the beginning disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing about Twitter is it brings out both ends depending on what you fuel.
True. And that's why you have to curate your space.
Yeah.
There's a certain perspective that we have about the value of social media in our lives, right?
Yeah.
We don't wake up every day searching for the number of people that have liked the image that we posted on Insta yesterday, right? To validate us.
Yes.
We don't wake up every day wondering how many followers am I going to be able to gain, right? Unless you're doing it for like business purposes
Yeah,
or
that's
for
different.
career growth perspective, but it doesn't add intrinsic value to our lives as human beings the way that it does to so many millennials, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that we say, a lot of the content that we put out, Siima, yourself, in all of the ways that you communicate to the masses, Jacob, yourself, in all the way that you communicate to the masses, through the music that you put out and all the other content that you put out to the masses, even in the work that I do, we communicate to a millennial audience who only knows the value that social media adds to their lives, and they qualify it as a very real and life-affirming thing.
Yes.
So how has having grown up in a life cycle where social media wasn't prevalent enough to become a life-affirming foundational thing for you, how has that helped you navigate it today, right?
Yes.
And also, what advice can you offer to somebody who lives in today's reality where they feel as though it is a life-affirming thing, but maybe they need to shift their perspective a little bit, maybe to just gain some peace of mind or some perspective to understand that what I think could be a crisis isn't really.
Isn't.
Or what I think could be that thing that presents me with so much benefit and value shouldn't.
Yes. That's a great question, but also a very difficult one. I had to learn to navigate the social media space and also to navigate the people I was talking to when I was working at XFM, because we were a very new station. A lot of what we were doing at that time when the station launched was new to like social media. I mean, even now, I think XFM is still the first like Ugandan radio station, at least youth English radio station, to be verified across social media, because we were doing it. Like at the time, no one was listening to us, so we just had to make the best of what we could with what we had. But especially, I was definitely on the breakfast crew. I was the eldest, so I also had to realize the people I was talking to are much younger than me, and to not be patronizing, but also to give them some advice and say, look, I can understand how your world can be basically social media. There's even a time I found myself falling into that trap. I remember on Instagram, there's a friend of mine who had told me that my Instagram page was just scattered because I didn't realize you have to check the tone of the pictures and it has to line up. And so I realized that when I was on Instagram, I was obsessing. Every time I took a picture, I was like, no, I have to take 3 because it has to be even. And then I was like, Siima, the world is not going to end if your Instagram does not line up.
Yeah.
It's not going to end if some people unfollow you. You were there before you signed up to this platform. You were there as an entity, as a person with thoughts and views and, things that you brought to the world. Whether or not people saw it whether or not people acknowledged it. So what I always say to people, I often see a lot of people who go and post, I'm taking a social media break. I'm like, just take it.
Just take it. Don't say it.
Like, don't tell us. But sometimes, as they say, it is very good to just go outside, touch some grass. One rule of thumb I do for myself is every morning when I wake up at 4 a.m., obviously because I do a breakfast show. But the instinct now is the first thing you do is you wake up, check your phone. Obviously, it's the first thing you pick up because maybe you're switching off your alarm or whatever. Yeah. But don't go to social media first.
Yeah.
Don't do it. It's not the energy you need first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
That has been my this year thing.
One thing I would say to somebody is, even if I understand that is your world, I get it. That's where you get your music. That's where you get your news. That's where you get further content. You're a content creator. I get it. You have to be online. You have to find a way to detach. Every day you need to take some time and just be away from your phone. Yeah. I know it might be sound impossible to do, but that's what I would tell them. Exist in the real world for a moment.
So everything is in a microwave, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Quick fixes.
Quick rewards.
Quick rewards, right?
Yeah.
Get rich quick schemes.
Exactly. I want it now. Delivery.
Instant gratification.
I want to call,
And yet,
tap, and you deliver to me in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
and yet, the fact is, a quick fix cannot match a delayed fix.
It can't.
It cannot.
Because it wears off
What
faster.
it wears off. That's why you need more. You need more. You're like just getting spoons of soup instead of getting a full buffet.
Yep.
You're just being given soombies every 10 minutes instead of
Yeah.
getting your.
And that's the thing. And I think that is also partly what worries me about this generation. It worries me on the one hand because they'll expect everything to be that quick. So I need a relationship to be quick. I need my job. I need my money right. I need to. It's got to happen
Right now.
like this, not
Yeah.
this. We're losing, I think, the whole thing of you've got to work for something.
Yes,
It
yes.
can't come to you just like that.
immediately, yeah.
Yes. So it worries me on that hand. But on the other hand, what does give me hope, particularly with Ugandan youth, is that they're like always moving. Like, okay, this has failed, right, on to the next one. Like,
Yes.
they just sort of keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess if you look at it from that perspective, it can be a positive.
You know what I find interesting, and this is something that kind of defines my view of the millennial generation. It's millennials, Gen Z, right? All of that, right? So,
millennial.
particularly in the context of we being Ugandans who grew up with the benefit of having the opportunity to either be born and raised abroad or have the opportunity to be educated abroad. So for me, it stems back to the fact that our parents, and what I mean by our parents' generation, people who are, let me call them 60 plus. People who are 60 plus grew up in a time in Uganda that was difficult.
Yeah, it was harsh.
There's no struggle that any human being who's growing up in today's era can equate to the struggle that our parents' generation overcame. Circumstantially, politically, you name it, the Armenian regime, you name it. It was just exponentially more difficult. And because of the difficulties that our parents overcame in coming up to achieve whatever status and facility that they were able to then pass on to helping us have an easier life, have access to the quality of education that we have achieved. By virtue of that extension of them giving that to us, we have been shielded so much from that struggle. Now, people who are, I'm 43, I'll be 44 in June. I have a friend who had a son at 17 years old, 18 years old. The guy has a 25-year-old son. My older brothers were both fathers at 22. If I had a son at 22, my son would be 21 years old right now. I can just imagine the challenges that I would have relating and being a parent to a child, son, daughter, whatever, who grows up in this era and not just wanting to protect them and shield them and wrap my arms around them.
Yeah.
So there's so much coddling and facilitating that parents are able to do. Not even just they're choosing to do it,
They're able to
but they're
do it.
able to do. There's so much facilitation and coddling and soft-handed encouragement that people can offer their kids that our parents' generation didn't even know was possible.
I was preparing us for a hard life.
right?
They were like, it's hard out there.
Yeah, our parents were like,
Yeah.
this shit ain't easy.
Yeah.
So get tough now,
And we didn't know it at the time.
because it's going to come.
We didn't
It's
know.
inevitable that it will come.
Yes.
But now it's like life is what you choose for it to be. You know? So when you think about the social media era and you think about the short attention span and you think about the get rich quick
Yeah.
and the instant gratification and the dopamine fixes that come along with everything that is associated with this digital lifestyle that we
Yeah.
lead right now, everything is instantly accessible. I don't need to know how to get downtown to find that vendor who's going to sell me a sack of sugar in Chikubo
No.
because Google can tell me.
Or you can have them bring the sack of sugar
you.
to you.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a certain level of convenience that has been built into the lifestyle of young people. So what I'm trying to get at is that I feel like people who are in that 40 plus crowd or 35 plus crowd who can very relevantly remember what it was like prior to
Yes.
the digital revolution.
Yeah.
People can come off as very judgmental.
Yes.
People can come off as very holier than thou.
Yeah.
And it's very critical that we don't do that because everybody's circumstances are different, right?
Okay, let's finish. I have a
And
sort of mental health.
so I'm just saying the foundation and the baseline of where you start from is always going to be different. So we just started from a different baseline. We started from a different foundation, but I see the benefit to where it is that we're going. And I see the benefit in us being able to use platforms like this to share our voices.
Yeah.
So that in the event that somebody out there is listening who's looking for a different perspective,
Yes.
we can share that with them and we can figure out how to, find a way forward that balances the two.
Balances.
That's the thing. I think we have to, and just to tie into what Gabs had said earlier, we have to understand that things are different.
Yes, they are.
generationally.
They are.
One thing I always try and remember, especially when it comes to social media, you might see it's Gen Z, right? They're the next ones, and you might think, what is this person talking about? We also have to remind ourselves that social media has changed the game. Gabs, when you were 21, is there any way you would be in a room with a 35-year-old man or your 35-year-old older cousin and talking about stuff with him?
No.
You wouldn't even be in the same he wouldn't even look at you.
Yeah.
Whereas now social media, here I am, I'm 41 years old. I'm on Twitter with 18-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 65-year-olds.
Yeah.
We would never have met
Right.
without social media. So we also have to remember that. So what might be a pain point to me right now, I'm thinking, guys, do not touch my NSSF money. I'm getting it in a few years.
Yeah.
A 21-year-old is like, my likes are dropping on Instagram. Why?
Exactly.
Right.
So we're equally stressed. So
Yeah,
I can't belittle, much as I would be able to say, you're stressing about Instagram.
No, no, no.
NSSF coming.
No.
Relax. But
Okay,
I
here's
can't
what-
do that.
Now, here's what I'm saying. Like you said, NSSF money is your stress.
Yeah.
Likes is this person's stress.
Yeah.
My thing comes down to the tools. You might have better tools to handle.
I think there's a learning curve that comes along with the availability of information
Yeah.
and the ease of, and as you said, the young people that grow up in this era who need to be equipped with those tools
Yeah.
are also being raised by a generation of people who don't necessarily understand how to create that.
Something I always say.
So this current phase that we're in
Yes.
is a transitional generation
Exactly.
where
Exactly.
the parents are figuring it out. The kids are learning on the fly. But at a certain point, it will level itself out where
Balance,
the parents of the kids who are growing up are also people who grew up in the same,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
People who are now in their 40s and 50s who are growing up raising young teens and 20-something-year-olds didn't have this frame of reference.
Yes.
But the people who are now in their teens and 20s now will raise kids knowing full well
Exactly.
what it is that they're going through and what it is that they're dealing with. So I think we are just in that transitional
phase. I agree.
phase.
I agree.
It's asking a lot of a parent of a millennial or a Gen Zer to have all the answers.
You can't.
I think it's the millennial parent. The millennial is the transitional phase.
Yeah.
That's us.
And remember, things are changing constantly.
Yes, they are.
You literally cannot keep up. So, yeah, it must be.
We've gone deep.
I know, right? That was a real deep dive.
Gone deep. We've
Yeah.
gone deep. Okay, so
Let's switch the next one before.
That's why I'm
we've
raising
gone deep.
dogs, not children.
talking about parents, talking about parenting. None of us got a kid. Let me tell you something.
It's okay.
Let's pivot this back to real talk, right? You two are both musicians, artists in unique ways, right? But
Sima's on my album, yo.
that's awesome. That's
I was
awesome.
so excited.
That's awesome, right? That's awesome. I want to hear about that collaboration. But before we get into that collaboration, right? I want to know, Siima, from your experience picking up the flute when you were in school as a young lady, right? you referred to your sisters were playing different instruments, and you decided to pick up the flute because you liked it. It was nice and silver and shiny.
You
right?
did your research.
Let me tell you something.
Where? I'm trying to remember where could you have got that? Okay, wow.
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah.
Nadir, is it Nadir? Who brings things people don't expect you to bring the interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
So having picked up a passion for music as a young lady, moving all the way through to now, I won't ask you to take us down a long journey. I just want to know a couple of specific things.
Yeah.
What's the coolest thing that you've ever experienced as a performer / musician? Is it providing some of your musical stylings for a Play01 original?
Oh, wow.
Is it? Did you perform on a massive stage somewhere in front of a spectacular audience? What is that thing that you referred to as your best memory?
Gosh, I mean, okay, there've been a couple. When I was learning how to play the flute, I was doing it purely because I've been obsessed with music from literally when I was born. And like you said, it was silver. I like silver things. And I wanted to do something that my siblings were not doing. I never expected that I would play the flute on a stage, like in front of people. It was literally something I liked doing at school. It was an extracurricular activity, and that was it. Most recently was getting to play with Juliana Kanyomozi.
Nice.
I've been a fan of hers for as far back as I can remember. And when she announced last year that she was doing a show, I just knew, I was like, I'm going to find that money and I'm going to go. Now, by some random miracle, a few years ago, Juliana followed me on Twitter, and I would tweet stuff and she would reply, and I'd be like, Juliana,
yes.
So when she announced her show, I was like, okay, I don't normally do this. I really try not to fangirl, but I did. So I inboxed her and I was like, look, I've never seen you on stage. I've been a fan and I'm glad and I'm just really excited. So she was like, oh, thank you. That's really, really nice. And she's like, oh, I've had an idea. Someone's going to call you. So I was like, does she want me to MC the show? Like, I'm ready. So Michael Ouma calls me. Now, I've played with Michael for years. Michael and I are very good friends. And so Michael's like, Juliana wants you to play. And I was like, what? Wow. She wants me to play what? The triangle? She wants me to find finger snaps?
Yeah.
Finger snaps. He was like, no, she wants you to play on Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. One of my favorite songs. It was one of my dad's favorite songs. And it was one of her dad's favorite songs. And she wanted me to play on that track.
Beautiful.
So I turned up for rehearsals, terrified. I knew a lot of the musicians in the room. It was Michael Ouma, Joe Sachs was there, Hudson, who was one of the contestants on Rated Next, where I was a judge. So seeing him as one of Juliana's backing vocalists, I'm like, this is amazing. And then Juliana walks in. And you know how they always tell you never meet your idols?
Yeah.
She was everything. She was really nice, really tiny. And then her voice was everything I expected it to be. So the fact that I actually was on a stage with Juliana Kanyomozi, to me, to this day, I still cannot believe that night happened. So for me, I've been playing the flute now. I started playing the flute when I was 11 years old. And for me, that has been like the ultimate.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What I love, and this is something I'm very passionate about, particularly in Uganda, I'm hoping that we get more female instrumentalists.
Yes.
Because for a lot of Ugandan women, when you tell them that you're a musician, they automatically assume that you're a singer, which is great. Yes. We've got amazing Ugandan vocalists, female vocalists, but the instrumentalists who are out there. Look at someone, you've got Mo Roots, doing a thing. There's Rita Sabiti who plays. Isabel plays. Yeah. There's like so many. Afri plays keys and sings. And a huge fan of Lizzo because I think it's great to see a black woman doing, what she does. Yeah. And considering all the backlash she gets, a lot of people complain about how fat she is and all this stuff. And I'm like, Lizzo is fitter than you. Because I've seen that. I know what it takes to blow the flute. You've got to have a crazy set of
Right?
lungs.
Yeah.
She does that. She's dancing. She's singing. She's rapping. She's twerking. I haven't figured out. I can't twerk.
Okay, look at you.
I've tried. Like people have told me, like, Siima, can you flute and twerk? I can't. It's just too much coordination for me.
How does that even work?
Yeah, exactly. So
But I'm watching Siima. Like,
that. I'm just no.
Don't stop. Do that nay.
It was just
Flute
like
and
that.
nay.
So
That's a good one.
I hope I've answered your question. But yeah, playing with Juliana Kanyomuzi was amazing. I played with Lillian as well. It's hard not to get distracted when you're on stage with somebody as brilliant as that, to forget that you're there to perform and to not fangirl.
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine being next to Juliana Kanyomuzi or Lillian Mbabazi and they're singing and you're just like, you're a fan, but you're like, okay, Siima, you're on stage, you better focus.
calm down.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Okay. So a couple last questions here.
Okay.
I know we're running short of time, but I want to make sure that I give somebody an opportunity to learn something substantial from the great experience that you've had as a professional in this media landscape, right? Because media now has gone from terrestrial TV and radio to social media, and pretty much anybody with a voice and the right set of apps can broadcast their opinions to the world and gather a following, right? So as somebody who has not only built a career and a name to be respected, but a reputation for having a standard of excellence about yourself, what advice would you give somebody who sees where you are, sees what you've gotten to achieve, and wants to emulate that in today's landscape? What advice would you give a young woman if she approached you and says, Siima, I want to be like you. Where do I start?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is be authentic. Be yourself. Don't try and be a different person. Don't try and fake an accent. It's different if, let's say, you're doing radio and you have to play a character. Yeah. But if you're just going to be a presenter, be yourself, because there's so much other stuff going on that you don't want to now divert more of your energy in pretending to be what you're not. So that is what I would say. The Siima you meet, here as we're having this conversation, or the Siima you meet wherever, it's the same person. So that's one thing I would say, authenticity. Second thing is never think that you've arrived. You've never arrived. True. There's always someone breathing down your neck who's hungrier, younger, and possibly even more talented than you. Yeah. So always benchmark. For me, when one of the questions I always ask is, Siima, what do you want them to say about you when they're lowering you into the ground? Which names do you want to be mentioned among? So when I look at radio, I want my name to be mentioned amongst Christine Mawadri. I want people to put my name next to Shanice Kachungira or Melanie Kaita. Like that's my thing. Every day, as soon as the mic comes on, it's like, Siima, kill it. Yeah. Okay, so you're only as good as your last show. Nice. So you might have had 100,000 people yesterday. Tomorrow, what are you going to do? Yeah. You've always got to, never settle. Consistency, and just always strive for excellence. Know that, okay, we all aim for perfection. It's not real. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you put your head down, or first thing in the morning when you look in the mirror, say, I'm going to give my best. When you put your head down, did I give it everything I've got? Whatever I'm doing. Yeah. If it is mixing a particular drink, or if it is doing a painting, or if it's writing a song, or if it's doing a radio link, did I give it my all? Yeah. That's all you can ask of yourself, I think. Those are the two things. Authenticity, never think you've arrived, just keep striving.
Are you a risk taker?
Yes, I am. Well, it doesn't come naturally to me. I won't lie. I'm the kind of person, I want to plan everything to the dot. Yeah. Okay. But obviously, as life goes on, you know that you can't always do that. Yeah. So, yeah, I am quite risk averse. But sometimes, just take a risk. For me, this was a risk. I don't usually do this kind of thing. But I was like, Siima, you know what? Scare yourself once in a while. Do something that scares you. Yeah.
As a one-word question, like as radio presenters, do you guys always get this script which tells you, and now we have to pay the bills? Uh-huh. Like everyone says that. Like, what's up?
Because we literally have to pay the bills.
But can you say, like, let's go to a commercial break?
No,
let's pause. Everyone's like,
do you know
and now
what?
to pay some bills.
And let me say this, and if there's anybody who is, an aspiring radio presenter, if I can just say, I don't want to be like that 2-week-old bride, but I think I've earned my bones to give you a little bit of radio advice.
You done your thing.
Everybody hates commercials. You hate them. The radio presenters hate them. We do not like adverts, but they are like taxes. It's got to be done.
Yes, right.
So whichever way you say it, adverts are going to play. One thing I hope is that Ugandan advertising agencies and clients get to a point where our adverts are much more fun. I think we have so much potential for fun adverts, and we just don't do it. And it would just make it easier for people who still listen to radio, because trust me, everybody switches off when adverts come on.
Yeah, before we conclude, I just want to appreciate you and say thank you again, Siima, for making the time and taking the risk.
Yes.
Right? Putting yourself out there and being vulnerable with us today, sharing a little bit of your story. We do reserve the right to invite you back.
Please.
Right?
Yes.
Because we're going to have an evolving conversation with our community out there.
Yeah.
And
it was a lot of fun.
people are probably going to have a lot of comments and a lot of questions that they would want to address and ask you.
Yeah.
So we'll tell them to tweet you. Right?
At Kanindo.
At Kanindo.
I'm going to put it right here.
Right?
Yes. We'll be looking forward to some interesting questions.
One last question from me, and then Jacob, I'll hand it over to you so that you can wrap this up for us. It's on the topic of advice. Mm-hmm. What's the best advice that you've ever received that you didn't necessarily listen to? And what would you tell yourself now?
She certainly did not say it to me directly. Was from Oprah Winfrey, who said, when in doubt, don't. Okay. Now, that might seem like you're cutting yourself off from a lot of things, but certainly one thing I've learned is you have to listen to your gut. There's always that voice. And for me, I hear it in different forms. Sometimes it's my mom. Like, I literally hear her voice in my head. Sometimes it's a feeling I get, and I feel that, it's my dad from beyond the grave sort of pushing me in a certain direction. But I would say there's always that one voice. There's something deeply inherently. You don't need to be told these are the 10 commandments. You know that it's wrong to kill or to do all of these things. So you have to ultimately listen out for that voice that's telling you, you don't feel right about this for a particular reason, or you feel right about this for a particular reason. So, I would say listen to your gut.
Listen to your gut.
Listen to your gut. It's usually on your side, unless you've eaten something dodgy, but it's usually on your side. So, listen to your gut.
Siima, thank you again for your time.
Okay,
Thank you for sharing your stories with us. This has been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I've had a really good time.
We could talk for hours and hours. I'm sure that we can. I welcome you to invite us onto your show.
Okay.
At any time that you would like to,
Wake up.
really?
Really?
I can wake up at 4:45.
I can do 4:50.
I can wake up at
we wouldn't need
4:45.
you
I don't live so far away from.
I can just not sleep.
Hey, okay.
From that terraza.
Guys, relax. It's never that serious, as
No,
my co-host says. But no, I shall talk to Miss Didan and Rudy and see what we can organize.
And shout out to Didan and Rudende, by the
Yes.
way. I love those
Awesome
two so
people.
much, man.
I'm telling you,
please give them our best.
It doesn't feel like work in the
Yes.
morning. Yeah, so
We'll be inviting the both of them.
Good thing
on
about we should
at
have
one
them
point
here
or
too.
another.
good luck with that. I'm the well-behaved one, as you can see. Yeah, but no, it's been great. Thank you so much, you guys. I will definitely come back.
Yeah. So again, thank you to all of the listeners and viewers. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, right?
Yes.
All of that YouTube talk.
It's a dry hump,
every
the
time I
like
watch
button.
a YouTube video, they're always
That's it.
like, subscribe, hit the link below, right? For more info. I'm sure we'll put all of the social media handles for Play01, Mastergabs, at Kanindo, in all of the social medias. But this has been a lot of fun.
And for other content, you can just watch the video right here.
Or is it there? I don't know.
There'll be 2 videos. One here. We out.
It's a wrap, guys.